Welcome to WCG VR Championship Final Assault. It is the EU qualifiers now. The NA one is over. We had the two. My name is G Clef, and with me is going to be Rapid Casting. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's good to be back. Well, I say back because we were just here a week ago kind of testing this out, playing the game a lot, but we weren't the only ones because a lot of our competitors have been playing them as well. We got a chance to see a lot of really good games in the North American qualifiers. What impressed you most about that qualifier, G Clef?
Some really cool the bomber plane strategy, just going all in and just destroying the base, disregarding all the towers. Those are some cool all-in cheese.
Yeah.
And some base rushes going on. So there are a lot of cool games happening from NA. I'm excited to see and find out what's happening in the EU.
Right, and don't forget, after this, we also have the APAC qualifiers, the Asia Pacific qualifiers, which will be happening tomorrow. And so you're going to get a chance to watch basically every region in the world try to play this game, and they'll all have their different ways to play it, their different strategies.
Yes.
And hopefully, if you're watching and you haven't gotten a chance to play this game, then you'll learn a lot from watching, and that'll make you want to play it even more.
Yes, exactly what you see on the screen, the overview. NA, been through EU. It's time. Let's see the two finalists that are going to be going to China and the champion from EU, actually. It's been really fun. Double elimination if you have watched before for NA, but if you're new, just watching the EU for the first time now, Final Assault, you get to see all the crazy fun action from VR, how it actually works. And rules, double elimination, even if you lose once, you also have another chance to climb up all the way into the finals and also win. And just the finals, BO3, but the one that moves out from the winner's match starts the finals with a 1-0 score.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Giving them that advantage for being so good. Here's a look at our maps here.
Yes.
Starting off with Chateau Todd, Copel Mine, Hill 512, Wallenberg or Wallenborg. And Stronghold is our last one. And what's so cool is that even if you lose your first map, maybe you're not really good on Chateau Todd. Each one of these maps has a little bit of something different.
That's right, because you can actually use different characters, different set of strategy depending on the map, the high hills. If you like to control the zone, then depending on the map, maybe you're just not filling the map. We only had one specific character to master, and maybe the character doesn't really work perfectly on the map. So there can be some weakness and differences, but all the maps has been revealed for all the players beforehand, so they can prepare for that. That's why we see these kind of crazy rushes that are happening on the map.
That's what's my favorite part about today is going to be finding out how these players play the game at a different level than just what we were. I mean, I had a lot of fun playing this with you.
What do you mean what we were?
all I'm trying to say, when we were playing the game, you know, we were figuring out
you were really good.
Theory crafting some of these strategies, but while I was trying like some cheesy artillery rushes, you eventually figured this out and made me kind of regret trash talking you a little bit early on. So I want to learn from these players so that I can figure out what it was that I was doing badly besides just not being very good at the game.
Oh no, you were really good. You were just cheesing through with the artillery, just making,
They're
just
so
putting
good.
one here, one there, one over there.
If you don't move anything out of the way, they just kill everything.
And then you just bring the planes, and I was just buying anti-air all the time. But here is the tournament tree, as we're gonna have the first match. For the 4 players, of course, you can see the double elimination format. The loser goes down to the losers match. Winners will go above to the winners match, and so on. So there will be a lot of games happening here. But what we saw from NA was actually really cool and really good lineup story, all the units, and we saw some different strategies. Let's see what these players have been practicing. They had some time, and it's a great game. It's so much fun. When we were just bursting each other, we actually thought, okay, that was about maybe 2-3 hours, but it was actually close to 4+ hours of playtime.
It was actually really surprising to me how fast time flies when you're playing this game. So let's think a little bit about what we have in store. So we got a chance to see our 4 players right there. I believe we're going to be having our Polish representative Dirvel play Cherry from France, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
Okay, all right. That's why you're here, G Clef.
Netherlands, I think. Yes.
Okay.
We have 2 Netherlands players and 1 from UK, one from Poland.
Okay.
So, yeah.
The stripe,
That's what I have on
what
paper.
order do the stripes go in? I'm just used to counting the stars on my flag. So
there are lots of countries, too many countries. But the important part is the first ones. The first game, Chateau Toad. It's only a 1-lane map, and we've seen almost a 50-minute game from NA. is it going to happen again?
So it's weird with one-lane maps, and you're going to get a chance to see that as we start off game number 1 right now. There may only be one lane, but you don't have to just go to that lane, and a lot of our best players actually choose to go off the beaten path and flank around with some cool artillery placements, maybe bringing out some anti-air. There's a lot of strategies here at play.
All right. Cherry bringing that German infantry, and Dirvel having that US armored. Let's see this different strategy that they're going to actually have here.
So because some of our viewers might not have watched the NA broadcast, just to break things down a little bit, basically you've got your U.S. and kind of German forces, and they have infantry, armored, and aircraft kind of heroes that we're using here. You can already see some strafing fire from the aircraft, the artillery coming through.
Nice controls, and that's. Of course, you do want to loop the planes. I think that's one of the hardest micro in the game, but once you really get used to all that control, I think you have the potential. Anyone has potentials to be good at this game.
Yeah, absolutely. It just takes a little bit of practice. If you're having difficulty, don't worry. Other people had found difficulty there too.
Like you and I.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Well, looping the planes was actually something that took me a lot of time to learn. So let's actually keep an eye on what's happening here. So you're going to be noticing the German armor actually kind of flanking through, helping along with the artillery to really deal with what was shaping up to be a very strong U.S. Army push.
Already setting off a few great units coming down from Cherry.
Now look at this. There's 2 artillery kind of set off to the side. That's really hard to deal with.
Artillery, and there's one more right next to it so that it can actually just take the shots and defend.
Now, kind of what we're not seeing from that angle was the return fire from the German artillery.
Oh, yes.
And it looks like it actually was able to take out both of those, so a very strong entrenched position actually just totally gone.
Artillery is, of course, taking the space away. I would say that's the key point of winning all the games from. And having a lot of troops, of course, will help end up building pressure and, of course, break the HP onto the tower. That's exactly what these both players are looking for.
Yeah, and you know, the towers are not very easy to take down. It takes a lot of concerted pressure. So you're kind of rarely going to be able to just run in there and take them out pretty quickly, although we did see a couple of cheesy strategies to do that yesterday.
Already unlocking the final unlock and having the anti-tank gun there. He wants to really control the high zone. Oh, but that's gone. That's almost gone with just a few more shots.
Yeah, one more shot. Oh, actually, the last artillery almost taking out that anti-tank gun on the high ground, but it survives with a sliver of HP.
Great set of actions already happening. If you have that control with the anti-tank.
Oh, it's so crazy. Look at the range on that. That's insane.
It actually will basically catch anything that's in range, which is basically half of the map or more. That's why if you control the high ground just like this, Dirvel's got a strategy here. Good setup line of defense, and then after that, he will start attacking.
Now, one way to deal with really entrenched long-range artillery, kind of like that anti-tank gun, is to use your Air Force. And even though we see a couple of planes out, they're not being targeted to take that out. Although I guess, you know, maybe they'll be moved over there in a little bit.
Yeah, Cherry from the German infantry does have the dive bomber, the yellow one you see. It's just style. I think it's about to come, but there are lots of the small airplanes in defense for Dirvel.
Yeah, you can't just send your aircraft out there without protection. Otherwise, they're just going to get picked off. It'll be wasted money. And let's kind of take a look at where our players are putting their money into. It looks like, at least from Dirvel, he is really prioritizing just every armored unit he can get his hands on.
And a lot of artillery and a lot of the Sherman tanks, the smaller, cheaper ones to decide it all. But that's only possible if you have really good micro, because you have to take control on a lot of things. Unless you just put everything down on the lane and it just goes automatically. Yeah,
and Dirvel hasn't actually even unlocked his highest tier of units at all yet, so his most powerful artillery hasn't even come out yet.
Has the anti-tank, but it's going to come out later. It has some potential with the Calliopes.
Oh, this is getting really difficult to deal with. You
just some extra pressure because of that Jeep only, but it's not going to really damage the tower too much.
Oh, that anti-tank gun finding a lot of good hits on those tanks in the back. They're not actually being controlled at all, so just kind of sitting idle when they could really play a role in this push.
Let's see what Cherry wants to focus, because Dirvel already got a really good setup on the hillside, so it's going to be really hard to even go outside of the base for Cherry.
Oh, and look at that artillery fire just decimating any
Yes.
form of a push there. Very, very strong, intense position. And it looks like you can see from the giant, omniscient hands that Dirvel is actually just continually reinforcing a very strong position.
Where is that dive bomber? That's the key, and there are no anti-air from Cherry right now, so you do want to get all the tanks possible.
It's just so important to be able to deal with that. That position being so heavily entrenched is giving him just a little bit by little bit bigger and bigger advantages.
Okay, never mind, Dirvel even has an anti-air. He's got a major... Look at this setup.
How are you
It's
gonna deal with that?
Crazy against all the quick ones. Anti-tank for the maximum range, basically sniping onto the towers now, basically.
How can it reach-
When the planes come, there's already an anti-air
He's
setup.
so well prepared. That position is so entrenched. I would love to see anybody deal with that. All right.
One big missile.
Well, there is a care package coming down. Let's see if anybody decides to go for that immediately. There
Oh,
are.
Dirvel's got it. He's already on the way with the Jeep.
Ah, there it is. Big money coming his way as if he needed any more help.
Oh, yes. I don't think he even needed that.
He's been-
Anyhow.
he's been the player to take down our first turret of the game, and it looks like he's about to take down the second one in a row, G-Clef.
It's going to be tough. How does Cherry come back from? He needs really good micro coming down from the planes and actually having a few more. I think it could be possible. It's not impossible to come back. His space is still safe. But the main problem, as you can see, the tower in front is going down.
Man, each one of these maps are going to play so differently. This single lane, you can see the troops coming right down it. They're all bunched up in one place, so it's easy to clear out that big wave with like artillery fire. But the problem is that the rubber band of units can snap back the other way. And I think that's what's about to start happening as Cherry's troops start to counter push.
Here does have some setups for bigger wave pushes happening later on into the game, but the moment all the units go out from the base, they will get deleted from all those high-range, long-range artilleries, anti-tank guns, and also plus more. And even Dirvel setting up lots of Jeeps just in case they get sniped from really fast-moving vehicles.
So those Jeeps are something that I think a lot of players might overlook because they're very light, they're very cheap, they die to pretty much everything. But
Oh,
they're
here it
so
comes.
important.
Okay, did get a lot in the set, so that setup is gone. But I believe Dirvel had, on the left top, it's not gone, so...
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of plateaus that look
Yes,
very similar. So
a few more.
It's easy to kind of overlook that.
So Cherry did spend a lot of money for that though, so it's actually another chance for Dirvel to push a little further. Artillery is shooting directly at the towers.
Well, we've already got 2 towers down. Cherry is at a massive deficit. And look, it just
Boom.
continues to rain down from on high. This German infantry, there's no counter to this. It just keeps firing away.
And the defensive artillery is busy defending the wave of troops coming, not actually hitting the offensive artillery coming from. Wow, this is amazing action.
Yeah, and look, you can see that Cherry's starting to react to this, to move some tanks and artillery into position, but it might just be a little bit too late, G-Clef.
Yeah, there's a second one, but the towers, not the final one, there's also one more on to the other side, but that doesn't really care about the wave too much. And finally, it seems like Dirvel is really getting on control of this game totally here.
Yeah, the German artillery, you can see that it's firing at the wave quite a bit instead of dealing with the enemy U.S. infantry artillery. And I think that you have to be really vigilant, not just kind of setting and forgetting your units, but making sure that you're always targeting what they need to be, like using artillery to deal with artillery that's killing your towers.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think Cherry wanted to go to the side where the wave is not at, but Dirvel was already ready, and the anti-tank guns are just so powerful. They would actually shoot you all the way from the far. And whenever Cherry wanted to move out, and all of his units were damaged, basically.
Well, I mean, Dirvel's basically got this unlocked.
The final tower.
It's about to go down here, G-Clef. I don't think
Final
there's
shots.
anything going to stop it. Oh, it's just a couple of hits away.
It's
One
on
more
fire.
volley, and there it goes. All 4 turrets destroyed.
And only the base remains for Cherry. How do you defend against this? The amount of units you see at the bottom on the red side. Look at those numbers.
Yeah, I mean, you can already see these tanks pushing through here. Dirvel just kind of autopiloting the Shermans. They don't even have to be very strong tanks. They're just there to buffer, and the artillery behind them, these M40s just firing away nonstop.
Yeah, Dirvel even getting the crocodile tank. I don't know exactly where it's at right now, but that is so strong, costs a lot of money. but it's always worth to buy because it's got a lot of firepower in it.
Oh, it's just so... how are you going to deal with that? I mean, if you can't deal with the little tanks, how are you going to deal with the big ones? Look at the artillery. It keeps firing away. And as if he needed a bigger wave to push behind it, this just keeps building up and building up. The pressure is so high.
And the base is taking damage from the troops. Look at the amount of army that Dirvel has been pressuring here. Some reinforcements are coming out from Cherry, but I don't think it's enough. And look at the setups. Oh man, 1, 2, 3. They have parked their way.
I mean, it's just all over but the crying at this point. I think for Dirvel, he has an insurmountable advantage, just built by little bit by little bit.
Oh, base is going down.
This is going to do it here, G-Club. We got the final hit points. That's it. GG. And it's going to be a victory for Dirvel in the end. What an incredible game.
What a badass. I mean, he had all the great setup from the beginning, and it's a little different. It seems like we have another player that's on another level of understanding about the game. You don't really unlock for the high cost units to begin with, but what you do is bring a lot of the cheaper ones like the Sherman tanks and all the jeeps, and make sure you have the first setup, and then move out slowly into the map.
But the thing that impressed me the most is
it's amazing.
You know, this is just one game, it's one map, and it's pretty clear that Dirvel had a strategy that worked very, very well specifically for this map, but he never gets to play this map again. We've got to move on to other maps, and so maybe he had a really strong strategy here, but it's not good enough to just win one game. You have to win all the way up until the best of 3 finals.
That is true. But if he wins the winner's match too, he can just win one more game in the grand finals and then just move on and become the champion of EU.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
I can totally see that happening already just by seeing one game because this player showed another level of competitive here.
It was actually just so impressive to watch somebody who had a very clear strategy and executed it almost flawlessly. And you know, for Cherry, it's a double elimination tournament. So we get another opportunity to see her play a little bit later on after our next match coming up. Yes,
next match. Before we go into the next match, notice Loki Games. You have been all the organizers, and we have been contacting Loki Games, but just today it seemed like he's MIA, missing in action. So he will be disqualified from match number 2, and Cass will actually advance with the win. So directly we will be going into the winner's match. So Dirvel, I think he has to play basically a back-to-back game.
Wow, that's really challenging, especially because, so if you're not used to VR games, if you're maybe used to either PC or console titles, when it comes to VR, the games can be a little strenuous. I don't know about you, G-Club, but when we were playing the other day, I actually started working up a sweat a little bit. After we'd been playing for a few hours, it gets tough to keep moving around, and Dirvel's got to do it back-to-back.
And you know what? The best part about the Final Assault is that you can sit down and play. It's an RTS. It's an RTS. You can sit down and move around and deploy all the units and put it anywhere you want and control all that while sitting down. Wow, guys. Problem solved.
Okay.
We don't have to exercise.
I mean, for me, it was a lot of exercise. And
yes,
we should probably talk about this just a tiny bit because there's different ways that you can control your units in the game. You can either move your body around with the Vive controllers, or you can actually pan, or you can like reach all the way over to a particular location if you want to. And I noticed, you know, we were watching a couple people practice a little bit earlier on. I was actually just moving my body. So if there's a plane way over there, I got to reach for it. But a lot of players think it's a lot faster to just move with the controller over there. And I think I agree. I'm just not that good at it.
No, there are lots of times where personally I was putting myself outside of the box because I don't know exactly where I am. I was almost going out of the sensor. But after playing for maybe about like 2 hours-ish, I realized that I don't actually have to move that much. I can just hold the side stick and then keep on moving inside the game. I don't actually have to move at all. So those were the fun part. And it comes down to the little micro and the big picture macro. You can actually turn the angle of how you look at the game just by pressing left and right. So in terms of control, this game's got everything.
Yeah, you can actually play whatever play style you want. Not only just with the movement because it's in VR, but also with the different characters that you have, regardless of who you want. Like if you're like more of a slow, like macro focused player, like the big picture kind of focus, or you just like controlling your individual little games. There's ways that you can control your units that'll give you a big advantage advantage if you're playing against a player who's maybe not as good as you are at that one tiny thing.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you're not really great at the micro, because for the first time VR players especially, even if you're somewhat used to it, it can be hard to grab onto all those small airplanes. I kept on missing personally.
Yeah, you're saying all the things I'm bad at. I feel personally attached to here.
And that's the reason why, if you get used to it, of course, it will be a lot easier very soon, very, very soon. But if you're just not really confident about the micro first, you can just deploy and put your airplane on top of the enemy, and will just it will just turn red, which means it will just go straight and attack on it. So there are lots of easier controls. Already made from the game developers.
I really love that because a lot of people think of RTSs and they're like, oh, those games are really hard.
It's too competitive.
I have to be really fast to play them. That's a big barrier to entry. But I really love for Final Assault. It's still really difficult. If you're a good player, people are going to know you're a good player. But if you have trouble with a lot of like the annoying parts of traditional RTSs, this one actually alleviates a lot of those. Units kind of lock on. There are big lanes that you can drag your forces into and kind of set it and forget it. But there's also a big reward if you are willing to put a lot of effort and control into like either a bigger strategy or into individual unit control.
And the best part, the game's fun.
That's right.
It's incredibly
game's fun, looks beautiful, it's fun to watch.
Graphics are amazing, by the way. Even if you zoom in all the way into a single unit, still crystal clear HD.
Dude, so I actually had a problem when we were playing against it because you were building a lot of fighters, so I'm like, okay, I'll build some fighters. But then our planes are flying and fighting each other in the air, and I'm just looking off into the distance, and I'm like, wow, they actually render the view distance like so far in here. But enough about me looking off into the distance. Let's look into our next game. We're back at it again with Dirvel, and this time facing the counterpart of the dynamic duo. It's Cass, his opponent.
The winner's match. The winner moves directly into the grand finals for EU qualifiers, starting with a 1-0 score, and the map is Kopo Mine. Now you have the twisted DNA lane on one side, and the other long lane with a lot of buildings next to it.
So let's talk about kind of how these buildings work, right? There's no it's not going to block a ton of shots.
It doesn't actually block the side of view for artillery.
Yeah. But it can be a little bit, if you're really hectic in the moment, you might miss something if it's kind of hiding behind there. I know that happened to me a couple of times. So let's see what our openers were for both players. It looks like Dirvel's actually going for a little bit of a heavier Air Force. 2 fighters right off the bat.
Yeah, Dirvel's still getting that US Armored, and Cass actually having that US Infantry. So there are some different units, but let's see how Dirvel actually uses this one, because this map doesn't really have... Okay, there are a few spots, I would say a lot less compared to what we just had, especially for the anti-tank gun. But you can still control the air with these kind of planes as you're just sweeping through the lane.
Okay,
so powerful.
You can't deal damage to units by poking them, despite what you guys might have seen there on your screen. But let's talk about some of the interesting differences here. We've got armor versus infantry. The biggest difference is that like the U.S. infantry gets the troop truck for mortars, so it's kind of like an infantry version of artillery, and it's actually really powerful because it'll just keep spawning those, and it can be really hard to deal with. Meanwhile, we just did see Dirvel pick up the first cash drop there, so he's going to get a little bit of extra money from that. Go up a tier level.
Yes, I think it's also because Dirvel's got a lot more Sherman tanks and also troops out in the map already, where Cass, I believe, lost the first plane getting out of the base.
Well, Dirvel's got that anti-tank gun out for sure now, and that has been just so powerful for him in the last game. But in this map, Kopo Mine does not have that high ground sort of area to get entrenched on, so that's not where he's just setting up the anti-tank gun in the lane.
He's setting him up because there is that straight path, and they will actually shoot directly to the tower, but there can be some amount of defense. Not yet. We don't really see too many fighter P-47 planes coming out from Cass. There's one. It's coming.
All right, well...
But it will take some time to actually get the anti-tank, though.
Yeah, now talk about fighters a little bit here, G-Clef, because they can strafe and help deal with long-range units like that anti-tank gun, but it's all about how you use them.
Oh, look at that micro. Dirvel turned it around to chase the tails of the opponent's Thunderbolt.
Yep, and there he is swiping on the ground to make sure that those planes come down for a little bit of a strafing run. But it's 2-on-1. The air advantage still goes to Dirvel.
And in the meantime, I believe Dirvel's setting up for a few more artilleries coming out. I think he really wants to pressure the lane here.
And look at this Air Force. It just continues to secure that location. That anti-tank gun keeps firing away. And, you know, this is a 3-lane map, so that increases the number of turrets by 2. And he's already almost done with his first one.
Now, Cass is trying to set up for a longer game, making sure the wave pressure is a little more with those troops inside the base, but losing that much tower HP, the first one should be gone.
I mean, it's very close to it there, G-Clef. I mean, we already saw the first tower drop, and now working on tower number 2. And you know, Cass is coming out with this anti-aircraft gun to help deal with the fighters, but as soon as it leaves the base, it dies immediately.
Dirvel wants to speed run this thing. As he's going super aggressive now into the central part of the map, going for the secondary towers here.
He just doesn't care. He's left the lane. He's gone off the grid. He's got that anti-tank gun in such a difficult position to deal with.
Yes, this is exactly what Dirvel's saying. Okay, this setup is perfect. I got the air units, I got the long range. Let's go for the secondary attack for the next set of towers, because Cass still has to deal with the first set of attacks coming down from Dirvel and worry about the second wave coming.
You know, a lot of players might look at the US Armored and think, oh, it's all about the Calliope. That's your artillery unit. No! It's the anti-tank gun that's getting so much damage done. It's so impressive to watch.
There are a few other
action.
maps for Calliopes to go around in the high heel and then high place grounds, where you can actually get a lot more value. I think Dirvel's just using similar strategies where you just outrange your opponent so far, and for your opponent to have better micro than you maybe with that. If you have that with the planes, it's possible, but base is actually taking damage already. Only 5 minutes in!
This is a speed run. I'm glad you called that out early. This push is so strong, and now actually Dirvel is moving those anti-tank guns closer and closer, or maybe it just looks like that because there's so many units flowing through them. The constant stream of tanks, it just doesn't stop.
Am I colorblind? Like, is that the red artillery in front of the base right now, 5 minutes, 21 seconds?
I think you're right there, G-Clef. It is actually so hard to stop this. Look at the blue...
10 Sherman tanks on the way, 11! Dirvel wants to pressure and finish the game right now. Cass, it's not enough. 4 towers down, even more are going down. The damage, base is on the fire.
Damage is real here, G-Clef, and there it goes. Game number 2 is over. Dirvel goes to the EU Championship Grand Finals.
He will be starting with that 1-0. And this is almost a speedrun. I did not expect that we were going to have a 5-minute 54-second game.
We were playing some of our games, and even some of the games yesterday, they were lasting 25, 30 minutes. But this game didn't even get to a fraction of that. It's just so incredible to see how streamlined Dirvel's strategy is. How do you deal with that?
It's really hard, and especially because you can kind of read your opponent's strategy when the person plays before. But what's really hard is that when you have the room, before you actually start the game, you do not know what the opponent's character is going to be.
Oh, that's right.
I think that's one of the part that Dirvel's really putting it out there, because you can't really look at the other character, okay, then you're just gonna change it to other character because you try to counter that. But until the moment you go into the game, you do not know what the opponent's character is. I think that's one of the mind games that you have to really think about before going in.
So many mind games, but you know, there's no fog of war
RTS?
here. Yeah, it's one of the beautiful things about RTS is that you're in the moment. It's the real time aspect of it, and there's a lot of pressure when you see those anti-tank guns chipping away at your towers. You know you got to do something. The pressure is on, and so far no one has been able to deal with the pressure that Dervel's been putting out there.
Dirvel moves on to the grand finals, but we are still going to have a lot more matches because we've got to find out the second player to move into the grand finals very soon. We will be back with more matches really soon. Stay tuned, guys. Welcome back to WCG VR Championship Final Assault. What a great game we are watching here, and we are seeing some pro-level plays already.
It's so interesting to me to see how good these individual players are at executing these, like you said, pro-level strategies.
I think we are already up there.
We are really hitting that because from watching the North American qualifiers, what kind of struck me is that it seemed like the level of play was pretty even for the most part. But here we're really seeing Dirvel just really steamroll his way to the grand finals.
What we usually saw from the NA qualifiers was that you build a setup, but usually just by unlocking to begin with. But what we're seeing from Dirvel is that early game pressure, which actually let you play the game super easily because you already have that much amount of pressure, which means you have that much more time later on to unlock everything and then have a major setup right after.
Really interesting. He goes with an early kind of rush tactic, but then pulls back, techs up, and then gets that heavy like anti-tank artillery going on.
Oh, yes.
And we've gotten a chance to see Dirvel dominate, but what we don't really know is what this lower bracket final is going to look like.
Oh, yes. Cherry and Cass, I think they can show something else. We'll also see if there are going to be similar strategies because we are moving into a different map, I believe hill. And we've had a lot of games, of course. In the middle of the pack, there's that small hill, 2 lanes going left and right. And how you control that middle space basically determines who the winner is going to be.
Yeah, and that's. I'm glad you pointed that out because we are changing maps every time we move forward in the bracket. And so if you think you've seen everything, no, there's more to come. And we're about ready to get into our next game here, G-Clef.
Oh, yes, we are ready. The losers finals between Cherry and Cass. The winner moves on to the grand finals. Straight on.
We played 511 games on different hills, and here we are at hill 512, G-Clef.
Nice one.
And let's find out what these strategies are going to be, because it felt like Cass and Cherry were really playing reactionarily in their previous games. Now let's see what they're going to bring to the table.
I believe these two players are really close to each other as well, so it's going to be a real fight coming out between the two. U.S. infantry versus the German infantry from Cherry.
Yeah, I think this might be the first esport to ever have players share the same Twitter account. So, good for them. I hope they have a lot of fun competing against each other. As much fun as we have watching. So let's see how we're going to start things out here. Looks like just infantry focus to start things out.
Yeah, both players having really similar, just one playing out, and that's about it. It's mostly the same cast going for a few more artilleries.
Yeah, and things are going to look a little bit differently. It's not like you can just play, or it's not like we're seeing just the same exact, characters from each player.
Yeah, one Thunderbolt from Cass, and similar for Cherry. I think they are trying to basically unlock the first set of few, and then go for that later game strategy.
Yep, and we're already going to get a few of those bazookas out there to see what they can do to kind of push the way forward. Currently, Cass is actually the player who's got more lane momentum, just the actual army that walks down the lane. But we could see that change here. It's a little bit hard to see in the shadow of these giant show me what you got heads.
Yeah, that is true. And you do want to get some. We do hear one coming. Maybe it's money time. Cherry's actually spilling some money right now on $30. Not spending on anything.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of a lapse in macro there for a little bit. Looks like the bazookas are still in the lane. I don't think there's any strategy to just not spending your money, is there?
Maybe try to go for the supply drop because Cherry's got that motorbike actually coming here.
So it looks like we might have had a small issue there. One of the reasons you could possibly not spend your money is that you're not in the game. From my perspective, I was actually just not spending my money because I was bad at playing the game. But that's not what happened here.
Of course, got the word from production that we're having some device issues.
Okay.
And there will be a rematch. Of course, no real tower damage or anything crazy happened. Yeah, so
we were
just a rematch.
We were trying to figure out the strategies, and we're like, well, wait, nothing has really transpired yet.
Not yet.
According to the rules, there hasn't been any damage dealt, so it's not like we really made a lot of progress. We're going to go ahead and restart things, and it's interesting because these particular players play together that one of them would have an issue that the other wouldn't have. So we're going to keep things even and just restart the game here and get right back into it.
Oh yes, I think it doesn't really take too much time to actually go back into the game. It's just one person just make one lobby,
Yeah.
and then the other person just jumps in, select characters. The first one, the one that makes the game, just selects the map and choose the character, make one, and then you just join with your character.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 right there.
No, it's
That's how we
actually
start the
super
game.
simple. We were able to get out of games and into games like just one right after another. So we should be getting into that next game here momentarily. We're going to get back into this. And if I'm not mistaken, they'll be playing the same characters that they were in the previous game.
Maybe that's going to be what's going to happen. But I think we're still waiting for the next set of updates. What's exactly going to happen? Maybe a bathroom break or some kind of air releasing break because they were about to fight and then one small issue. Okay, we can have some break here, and we can actually spend this time to talk about Final Assault a little more.
Okay. Well, at least for me, when I've worked on a few other VR titles before this, but what really impressed me about Final Assault is that you're taking a very complicated idea in RTS and you're trying to simplify it so that it's easy enough to play in this VR space without making people dizzy or making it too complicated or too hard to play. Really kind of seems like the perfect balance so far, and you can still have these crazy strategies.
Yes, and the moment you go into the map, it looks amazing. It's surreal, and you can have all the right setup. And there are many more maps. I believe 14 maps if you count everything together. Of course, that was on the website.
That's right,
the official website. And when you go into the map, so there are some ones with snow. Some are a lot brighter. It just looks beautiful. I can basically just confidently say that the developers have been putting a lot of time finalizing the map, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it took a lot of technology to learn how to put real snow and miniature mountains in the game, but they did it. So I don't. It's like watching the Indian in the cupboard all over again, G-Clef. It's just a little tiny world right in there. This is like my grandmother speaking about VR games. I don't know.
I know you're from Texas, and Phaser Lock, of course.
That's right. These guys are actually like only mere miles away. I've actually been right by where the studio is. Had no idea it was there. So I would have come by and said hi, guys, but I wasn't that cool back then. So if I ever get the chance again, I will. I'm so hurt. I'm injured, just like I would be if I were shot by one of the U.S. infantry we saw in that last game.
Oh, yes.
I'm trying to bring it back around here.
That was a big bomber plane there, dropping one right onto you. Bomber dive.
I couldn't get to the shelter in time, G-Clef. I have no counterplay to this argument. Anyway, we are still waiting for our players to get right back into the game. As soon as they are there, we'll get right back to our final assault, which is actually our next to final assault because we still have the finals after this game. We'll get there eventually.
Stop playing with finals.
Well, in truth, the finals will be happening in China, in Xi'an, and
in July, not too far away.
Not too far away, but what was so cool, if you guys missed the U.S. qualifiers a little bit earlier today, NA qualifiers,
yes.
That's right. There's more than just the Americas qualifier, North America.
It seems like the issue has not been resolved yet. And we will take a short break, and when we come back, it should be resolved. We will be back with a short break very soon. And welcome back to WCG VR Championship Final Assault. It is the EU qualifiers. We did go through a few matches, and we are, I believe, ready for that losers final match once again.
Yeah, we didn't have one of our matches because of a disqualification. And this losers final, we had a little bit of a start, but we're coming back after a restart. So if you're just now joining us, then welcome. This is the WCG VR Championship for Final Assault. Final Assault is a VR title, and I think if you are new to VR, this is kind of a great way to kind of break into it, because you might be watching it on a 2D screen, but it feels totally differently to jump into the game yourself and play around.
It is not the same. It is not the same in a better way, You know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's so hard because, you're listening to our voices or maybe you're watching the games, but that doesn't really give you the full picture.
The full 3D experience with a VR, the virtual reality.
For me, I've never seen this, there's different ways to play different games. You play console, you play PC, you play outside. Well, nobody does that anymore. But when you play in VR, it's just so much, more immersive. So when I see an artillery, shoot a missile that flies right by my head, I'm just like, well, maybe I know it's virtual reality, but it's still like, hey, we're in a battleground situation.
The best thing you do when you go into the game, I was doing it to you all the time, just bring yourself to the other person's face and start punching. And then the other person will actually freak out. That's the best part.
It actually did throw me off. I was running away from G-Clef in virtual reality, but also in real life too. But that happened later on. Anyway, as far as the game goes, it's really cool to just get in there, and especially in 1v1 kind of games like this, you can see where your opponent is, and you can taunt them if you need to.
And we are ready for that losers finals. Cass, as you can see in red, same U.S. infantry, and Cherry in blue, German infantry.
Okay, so let's talk about kind of one of the cool things about RTS. It might look kind of similar, but there are some subtle differences here. What's the biggest thing to watch out for between US and German infantry, G-Clef?
I would say different units, different countries, different colors.
Right. Many differences, some similarities. They've both got kind of the same fundamental light-heavy.
Yeah, the starting light-heavy ones are basically different names. It looks somewhat different, but like the artillery, anti-air, the troops, the small fighter planes, they're about the same, like the Sherman tank and the Panzer from Germany.
Yeah.
They just look different, but the same in a way.
So what you can see right now is both of our players have gone for a little bit of an investment in Air Force, or actually, no, it's just Cherry. And so she's drawing those arrows on the ground to keep the aircraft strafing those infantry waves to thin out the herd.
Yes, good catch. And on the other side, Cass actually went for 2 artilleries once already. But no anti-air, no fighter planes. So just getting 1 now because Cherry already got 2. And without the air control, you will be basically losing your tanks.
Oh yeah, you're just giving away your artillery for free if you don't have any air support. Air is the biggest way. So what you could see right there was Cass using the finger to draw the path of her fighter plane to try to counter the enemy fire. But unfortunately, that doesn't work very well when you're getting shot by flak cannons.
Oh yes, it's catching tails for the planes. Fighter planes, you need good micro, of course, to actually have all of them. You can actually, when the opponent's plane is chasing you, see how it's just looping around? And when the enemy plane comes, it will loop around together sometimes. And you can draw it to your base where there's anti-air defense already ready for waiting.
Huge artillery shot just completely decimates that wave. I think I'm using decimate correctly. There's 1/10 the units there, I count it. But you can see a beautiful position set up. There's nothing to deal with Cass's artillery on that hill.
Exactly, as Cass already got some control from her side with those artillery, because you do have to control that middle ground so well.
Crate coming down, being instantly captured, and so more and more money coming Cass's way. It really feels like Cass has a pretty decent spot in this game, but that could change at any moment. Let's talk a little bit about what to kind of expect here. Ooh, another big shot, actually not taking that tank all the way out.
Yes, I believe that's 2 dive bombers actually with that yellow nose on that plane, which means the dive bomber. That's why we're seeing the dives happening on those tanks. Most except for the really heavy ones, usually 1-2 shots on the tank, and they blow up right after.
Right, so these are Stuka dive bombers. They come through, and you can tell because their wings are kind of folded up a little bit. So if you have a hard time telling which fighter's what's a fighter, what's a bomber, just look for the wings that are folded up, and that means the German infantry is going to drop a few bombs on.
There are a few other really heavy ones. We'll talk about that later when it comes out, but Cass, because of those dive bombers, getting that, what you see on the left side of the screen, anti-air setup, nicely done. Ooh, but it's taking damage already from the artillery and has to be moved.
Oh yeah, you gotta move out of the way of the artillery.
Was it too late?
Oh yeah, one of them is gonna go down. The others did move out in time, and that's one of the biggest counters to artillery. Just move your stuff.
Oh, look at that. Cherry was ready for this setup push because you know your enemy's going to come for your own artillery.
Yeah.
So you got to have a set of defense here.
Such a cool kind of rock, paper, scissors
exactly.
Trifecta that you have to watch out for. It's like maybe you got an artillery setup, but then the aircraft is going to come bomb it. But then you put anti-air there, but then the anti-air dies to the artillery. It's really, really sick to think about.
Cast was trying to have some anti-air there, but Cherry still having that 2 big planes in the air. That's going to put a great amount of pressures, especially onto the lane whenever Cass wants to push with her own set of tanks. There will be those planes trying to drop bombs on top of those tanks.
Well, you were talking about her own set of tanks. Here they are, and that's not just one artillery. It's a tank and it's an artillery and a tank to cover it.
And Panzer.
Yeah, we're starting to set up a little bit of a position here for Cherry. We'll see if she can defend it because neither player has actually made a whole lot of progress.
Yeah.
There's no damage on towers yet.
Right now, Cherry's about to do it, pushing the next line of offense where she can actually get closer in range to the tower now. I think that's just in range or should be really close to it. So having one artillery and then pushing the next one to the next level.
All right, now while the artillery might be set up for Cass at her base, let's see when she really wants to push out. She's got a few Jeeps kind of making some exploratory runs out there because it takes a lot of setup to kind of go into a heavily entrenched hill like the one that Cherry set up.
Oh, yes. How can you break through this one intensively? Gladly, there's no direct, too many anti-air. There's only one around Cherry. So maybe Cass can just use all the air units to blow on.
Well, one thing Cass has actually gone for is that she has built this gigantic bomber up in the air.
Yeah, bomber heavy.
Look at this.
That's going to tank. It can actually tank a lot of the shots.
Yeah, and it does so much damage. Let's just watch it go for this bombing run here. There it is, dropping bombs all over everything. Misses a couple of takes, but actually only one survives. Wow.
But still, that was the problem Cass was having. Problem solved already with just one heavy, expensive unit. But as long as it survives, it's always good. You're going to keep on using it.
Yeah, don't get it twisted. That's very expensive. I think 28 costs to buy that.
One of the highest cost units there.
And if you don't protect it from fighters, it will die. But it doesn't look like there's a whole lot to counter right now. Still only one fighter on the enemy team.
One fighter, but 3 anti-airs from Cherry. After taking a few shots, I gotta take that plane down. It's a flying fortress, but against anti-air, let's see what it can do.
That's right. The artillery still continues to be a problem for Cherry. You can see it right there. So it's really cool to see how maybe Cherry was the player to build the artillery early on, but now it's Cass that has the air dominance and the artillery. 6 artillery from Cass.
6.
I was counting.
Those are we don't really see them too many near the lanes. I think it's just spread out all the way around the central area because if you just do not have them set up exactly, you will be losing space.
Now, actually, look what Cass is doing off to the side of your screen. She's got 2 bombers, those flying fortresses. They're just looping around over and over again. She's saving those for later because once Cass sets up a big defensive position, all of a sudden, these 2 huge bombers come in and blow it all up.
Ooh, and Cass is starting to actually get more and more of that bomber-heavy flying fortress. We've seen some cheese strategy from an A. Having those going straight into the base, taking all the air defense, but still doing the damage to the base with about 4. I think Cass is going to have some similar strategy here.
Yeah, and so what you need to look for is an increased fighter count on Cherry's side, but she hasn't really built any of those just yet. She's going for a little bit more of the lane pushing style. It's got a couple of panzers in there, actually 4 of them. So her lanes might push a little bit more quickly, but that doesn't help you deal with the high artillery count on the ground.
Yes, and that's why Cherry's getting that tank destroyer. Hetzer, only having 1. If you stack up to 2, I think that's when the real power actually stacks. And you can actually get a lot of those artillery. The tank destroyer can take multiple shots of artillery and still be okay.
Yeah, that tank destroyer is no joke. It is absolutely gigantic. I think that unit itself in real life was only built like 1 or 2 times. Like not, actually I'm thinking of the Mega one, but this one is very powerful. I'm just kind of questioning its usefulness. Will that be able to work? Because there's still those bombers in the air. When
you see that on screen, you'll basically know what we were talking about, the tank destroyer. It looks like a tank destroyer with armor +5.
It's just gigantic.
Right there.
So yeah, there it is. And I just want to watch this kill stuff. That's half the benefit, and actually one of the biggest downfalls to me playing this game. I just would watch stuff kill other stuff. I'm like, wow, this is so cool to watch.
Ooh, lots of drops happening.
That's right. I'm not sure if they hired Michael Bay to make this game, but there's lots of explosions.
He can surely come in and love this game.
Oh, for sure.
All the time, because he likes explosions happening.
Now there's nothing. We haven't seen any towers explode, though, G-Club. By this time, last game, our series was already over.
Oh, here comes.
All right, the bomber's coming over. He's got 3 of them.
And Cherry actually has 4 anti-air set up. Is it going to be enough? The fighter planes are on the way to tank and fight in the middle.
Oh, let's watch these bombers. They're still being commanded. I'm not sure where they're going to go. They're taking actually a lot of anti-aircraft fire, and they're not going to last forever. So one of them actually going down here. The second one taking a lot of fire, and there it goes.
Ooh, not even damaging the towers because of that. The amount of anti-air that Cherry already set up.
Yeah, you know, the airplane does not damage anything unless it's dropping the bombs on it. So
and you gotta micro it really well.
Yeah, you know, that was kind of anticlimactic. I definitely expected all of those to just go drop their bombs on the enemy base or destroy some fortifications. And now they're just gone. Only 1 remains.
Yep. So the saving count from Cass is basically gone. All those 2 big, really expensive cost units are gone without really doing too much damage at all. Cherry still has that amount of anti-air, and with that line of defense, now 3 tank destroyers. Time to push.
This is actually a big switch here. Cherry now able to go on the defensive, or on the offensive. She's got tank destroyers, and she's starting to damage these towers.
Yes, that anti-air should be gone in a matter of seconds.
A matter of seconds. Anytime now. Yeah, there's only 1 left, basically. And on the other
7
side...
seconds. Okay.
Okay.
I was counting.
there were a few. You're right. It was a matter of seconds. We just had to count how many there were.
And there's no anti-air anymore for Cass, so Cherry still having the dive bomber. Can actually go a little further.
Sorry, I was scared there for a second. There's a giant face in the air. But you're right. The dive bombers are still being... Actually, they're gone now.
Oh, it just... I guess it just went away from the fighter planes.
Right. But hey, we're back up to 3 flying fortresses from Cass.
Ooh, and they are raining down fire on the lane against tanks, against troops. And with that much damage, they should be gone.
You know, but like you said, these 5 armor tank destroyers, they're going to take quite a few bombing runs to tank out. And actually, a couple of these lines that were drawn from these flying fortresses on the ground didn't actually cover the entire wave.
So see how long it actually takes to get those tank destroyers?
Yeah. They are very tanky, as they might you might imagine. The problem is, though, that eventually they will die, and that was a big investment from Cherry. So let's see what her solution is to dealing with these bombers.
Yeah, that could only happen because the tank destroyers were towards Cass's base, where Cherry's anti-air was set up towards her own base.
Right.
So it's really hard to move everything together. Now the anti-air does come for those bombers.
Oh, let's see if it's enough, though. I mean, there's no more anti-air here from Cass. I mean, she does have fighters, but no anti-air on the ground. And I think the fighters will be enough because there's actually not that many fighters from Cherry to defend.
Yes, those dive bomber planes are really strong. Still having 3, and they can take a lot of shots from those anti-air.
Yeah?
Yeah, we've seen some anti-air setup shooting onto those planes.
These consistent bombing runs are actually just dealing so much damage.
We do hear that siren. Where is it going to be? Directly into the base.
Yeah, immediately as soon as Cherry's units spawned there, they got immediately destroyed by that artillery.
Inside of the base, getting all the troop ones down that are helping the members pressure into the lane with extra troops.
Those are called base defenses, but they're kind of base offenses there.
Yes.
Really used to
it's
just...
the ultimate defense is the offense.
Oh yeah, well said there. I'm casting with like Genghis Khan and his Art of War over here. Or is that Sun Tzu?
Yeah,
Sorry, my
yes.
history was never my strongest subject. But see, I'm learning so much from watching it in action.
We're learning U.S. and Germany history right here.
That's right. Close your history books, kids. This is where we learn the real lessons. Cass versus Cherry in the battle for WCG.
Let's see the focus. A lot of units for Cass actually went down. Lots of zeros on the bottom. Few small Sherman tanks. Few fighter planes. That's about it. We see 2 artillery, but look at the side of Cherry.
Yep. Now, one of the biggest mistakes I see players make is to send their units into a meat grinder. And essentially, you're spending tons of money, your opponent's just getting stronger and stronger.
And clumped up together.
Exactly.
One shot will hit 4 units all the way together. This is what happens. Cherry having all those units clumped up. Cass does have a chance, but base is under attack.
The base is under attack. It's taking a lot of damage. There's still that bomber in the sky that's continuing to deal with it. And, I mean, these tank destroyers are strong, but they're not going to kill anything in the air.
There are few artilleries, and there is a line of defense, but the base is taking shots.
Yeah, there's nothing to stop this long-range fire. Cass's base is going down.
It takes a long time to get those tank destroyers. It may not be in time for the defense.
They're just way too
Few more
strong.
shots.
Yeah, it's going to go down here. There's nothing that can stop it. The critical mass, I feel like it's been
one
reached.
More.
And it's just going to go down. Cass.
That's it.
Cherry, in the end there, those tank destroyers, I really underestimated how powerful those would be. Just indestructible. No matter how many bombing runs were sent at them, they never died. They took the base down in the end. Really impressive play.
Yes, with the tank destroyers, it was a good switch. Okay, first, got to defend against all the big planes coming at my base, having, I believe, 4 anti-air units? Yeah, 4 plus the base anti-air. That was just enough to have near-perfect defense. Okay, I've got the control of the game. And then switches into the tank destroyer mode. And guess what? It works perfect.
Now, the game might have actually kind of changed a lot if we hadn't seen that mid-game decision to send all of the Flying Fortress bombers into the middle of the map, and then I think 2 of them died to anti-aircraft fire, and there just really wasn't a lot of productiveness from there. So that really kind of, I think, set Cass a little bit farther behind.
Oh, yes. There were lots of also fighter planes going down in the middle.
That's right. And then eventually Cherry just built up this indestructible iron army of tank destroyers.
It can be really hard. Grabbing the plane, first of all, that's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Grabbing the plane in just one single try, and then dragging on top of the enemy airplane so it chases the target when it turns red. On the moving target, so that can be a little hard when you're trying to control this many, and you only have limited time because of attacks coming. But Cherry had that defense. It's amazing control. I believe that we can just see that amount of practice that she has done already and playing the game.
Yeah, this is not something that you get the first couple times you play it. So, as a word of encouragement, as we definitely know from our first initial times playing this game, is that if you play this game and you think that it's overwhelming, you think that it's too hard to control, like, just take a break, don't give up, because the only reason these players are so good is because they have gone through the same struggles you do, and they just keep getting better and better. So maybe next WCG, you too can be here.
Yeah, make sure you go against Rapid and bring him down all the time.
Oh, that's a guaranteed way to climb up the ladder. I still got a lot to learn, but that's why we're here, G-Clef. We're all learning together.
Oh, yes, exactly. And as you saw, depending on the map, there are certain strategies, like long range, of course, that can be a way. But when there is a hill top and a big space to control in the middle, artilleries.
Yeah.
That is the way and how you control the range. And then you push the next line of attack and then next line of attack into the tower range. And that was basically, I think that's one of the starting strategies that you can try when you play the game.
And, even though we've seen these very powerful strategies illustrated here today, there's still just so many more that could happen. And don't forget, these are the EU championships. We've got the APAC championships coming up tomorrow. And we're going to see even more different cool strategies then.
Yeah, there can be just a great amount of focus for the small units, and then just push them with maybe 10 small tanks, 10 Sherman tanks or Panzers, and they will actually, not even 10 needed, maybe 5, 6 with the lane pressure, can actually do a lot of damage to towers and start off the game with a tower down. Those kind of early game strategies, late game strategies, we might have some differences in between. Maybe we'll have some meta difference in between the regions.
The different regions.
Yeah, different regions going for different strategies.
And we haven't even seen what China's like to play.
Oh,
so there's so much more in store. Speaking of more in store, let's get into it. This is Sherry versus Dirvel, G-Clef.
Wallenberg. High top hill plateaus. Perfect for Dirvel's strategy with the anti-tank gun. Once again, the grand finals between Dirvel. Dirvel does start off with the 1-0 because he moved out by winning from that winner's round.
Yep, he's already got a little bit of extra infantry spawning just right off the bat, so his lane's going to push just like a little bit more. We might see that even up a little bit later on, but let's see what kind of strategy he goes for early. So it's a fighter to start. That's his first unit. He's going for a second one as well, and both players really fighting this air battle right up close and personal. I love our camera guy. Shout out to him because he's giving us some great views of this early air battle.
You see some great micros from both, chasing tails. I hope the opponent all the time, man. It seems like we're just having a lot of fighter planes back and forth.
Oh, finally one going down. An epic angle, which does reveal that we are starting to switch up our tech and climb up that tree. First artillery out for Cherry.
All right. When you have that airspace controlled, it's about time to get your units on that plateau, on that high hill, to take over the space.
Yep, that's exactly what both of our players are doing.
Ooh, Dirvel coming with the snipe with that fast mobile.
I love the usage of these small, cheap units to deal with the more expensive, slower artillery. If you guys have problems dying to artillery, that's how you fix it.
And then right after, you can just place him near the X mark.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a perfect use of the beginning of the game. Dirvel starting off very nicely and having some really good setups.
Yeah, you can see that's exactly what he's doing. And he sees that the tanks are coming for those X marks where he's parked his light units, moves them away, saves them for later.
Oh, yes. Of course, Panzer a little stronger than the Jeeps from the US here.
Their guns are pretty big.
And of course, Cherry also has some motorbikes. We don't really see 100% on the screen, but I believe it's on the other side of the map.
Now look at what Cherry's doing. She's going for a very quick rush here with these 3 early tanks.
Yes,
they're going to take down this turret.
Exactly what we talked about early game. You start to build pressure with artilleries, but if you get those early cheap tanks, gather a few, push the tower.
Hey, that's 1 tower down. This is the first time Dirvel's lost a tower all tournament.
That is true. The first time grand finals. This is going to be a hype match.
But look at the counterplay is that while he lost that turret, he's got a huge wave here that you're gonna have to find some way to deal with. Artillery is one of those.
Oh yes, Dirvel's got that set up in the base to get that extra set of wave. Look at the amount. Look at the number.
Oh my goodness!
50, it's going down, but it almost hit until 60, when Cherry only had about 30 on the other side.
Yeah. Now the waves will kind of reach equilibrium again here, but let's find out what Dirvel wants to do, because he might have lost an early turret, but he's still got that bigger, badder strategy, and he's already got those anti-tank guns in position.
Yes, exactly. And I think Dirvel wants to push a little further with the small units and then get the really good setup. And we've seen from the NA qualifiers what you can do with the anti-tank gun. Because the lane is a straight, long range, you can have one all the way in the back, but still keep them safe because it's right next to your base.
Yep, now Dirvel is trying to set up a position here on the high ground, but actually Cherry with these tanks is actually pushing him away. This is the first time we've really seen any player deal with his anti-tank entrenchment.
Oh, great micro coming out from both of the players.
Yep, Cherry
You are being lost.
Cherry about to lose her first tower here, and I think with one more fire...
Ooh, artillery taking a lot of those small Panzer tanks down.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to deal with them. The Panzer tanks are not good at fighting long range. They are meant to get up close and personal.
Oh, also, Dirvel actually had pair of tanks set up for the defense inside from the base, making sure he doesn't really get pushed too far into the baseline.
Yep, now look at this. The anti-tank gun coming in for Dirvel, but there's already a couple of artillery set up, ready to go. There's that anti-tank gun. It's firing away, but it is good at tanks, and those are the choices that Cherry is making to deal with it.
Yeah, look at that. Dirvel already getting the angle from the anti-tank
Oh.
guns into the tower range, but the tanks are getting destroyed right before hitting another shot into the tower.
Yeah, and these towers are continuing to take damage. The buildup of troops in the lane being dealt with that rear artillery, and Dirvel seems to be reaching a pretty strong position
Yeah,
here.
Cherry right now bringing out all the troops, everything possible. But when the time comes to a pressure like this, you have no time to control your fighter planes. You can't really have that much micro.
And that's what we're seeing in the air. Look at Cherry. She's trying to get up here and take down a couple of these fires. But yeah, exactly. Outnumbered, outpositioned too. She's just being chased down. This dogfight is not going her way.
And look at the amount of artillery and all the setup from Dirvel pushing all the way. The second tower is about to be destroyed.
Yeah, and while Cherry might have taken that quick early tower, this momentum has shifted massively. Dirvel now taking down not only one, but the second one about to fall.
I think Dirvel was also trying to get for the base anti-air buildings. And the second one does fall. Dirvel pushing his line.
Yeah, but you know, he's not totally invincible. There was a little bit of a push coming his way earlier, but I think now is where he's really going to start to cement his lead.
Because he's pushed so far, he doesn't need the anti-tank. They're slow, they can shoot from the far range. You gotta have something strong. Here comes, I think it's about to come, the crocodile tank is on its way.
And that thing, as if you even needed that. Look at this massive wave.
Base is taking damage already though.
He's actually going to kill the base before that crocodile tank gets there.
This can just be game. And Dirvel may become the champion of EU in few more seconds. That's too many troops to defend.
Seconds away. The base is getting lower and lower, and there it is. Dirvel dominates, undefeated, and he is your EU champion.
But Cherry was able to get one tower, even that's impressive. Dirvel, he's got another level of play in the micro and the macro. It's incredible. Both players earning the exact same amount of money and no money wasted.
Okay, all right. That's how you can tell they're good players. I definitely wasted quite a bit of money when I was playing this. But congratulations to Dirvel. Absolutely dominant play. And I think in that last game, we really saw that even though, you know, gods can bleed, he was able to kind of right the ship, say, okay, it's not game over. I didn't lose too much. And then just come back and gain little tiny advantages to get himself back
So
in
it
the
was
lead.
actually a Kuma where Dirvel was trying to switch into the anti-tank gun where it cost a lot. He needs to really gather all that amount of money, but Cherry just comes with the small units in that middle of the time. So Dirvel had to decide, okay, do I spend money right now and defend perfectly, or do I plan for the future? Those were some of the decision making that all the RTS players have to make, you know.
Yeah, you really have to think, okay, maybe I'm losing right now. How do I come back? Well, let's save a little bit of money. He then came back and won the air war really convincingly. And once you control the air, then you can start to control the ground with things like those anti-tank guns.
Yeah, those were the strategy and the result. And Dirvel, first place to champion, but also Cherry because we have two players from each region moving on to WCG 2019 Xi'an. Cherry will also go to China for getting the second place out of the qualifier.
I mean, there's money on the line here. Let's not forget that. 2,000 for first, 1,000 for second, I believe. So that is a lot to play for all of our competitors.
Oh, yes. And it's been real fun. I mean, Dirvel tried to just speed run this qualifiers. show the world how good he actually is with the game.
Oh, I can't wait to watch this guy play up against the strongest players from all of the other regions, because if he can do this within his own region of Europe, I can't wait to see how this strategy works against the strongest players from APAC and NA.
There will be solutions to this. There will be solutions in time, and there may be a player better or at the same level. Just imagine what kind of matches or games we're going to have if it comes to that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Final Assault is a game that is new enough to where the best player in the world right now is not the best player that will always be for this game. It could be you, it could be me, well, maybe not me, but for the most part, there are a lot of strategies that have yet to be thought of, that have yet to be figured out, and I can't wait to see more of those from the rest of our pro players, from these other qualifiers, and even at the finals in Xi'an.
It's a little bit unfortunate that Loki Games was MIA. It was disqualified, but still, you saw the level of action that we had. The controls has to be precise in order to get all the planes, even 1v1 fighter plane fights. If
Yeah.
you have better micro, you can win over the opponent. And that's the start of the game. If you have one more plane, air control, ground control, you saw how they all counter react. This unit beats the other one, this unit beats the other one. So there are lots of ways, and if you're a step ahead than the opponent, you may as well just take the game like that.
Yeah, excellent game design. And just when you think you might understand how things work, you have a player that comes out and totally dominates you, and you realize you might not understand very much at all.
Yes, we do have the champion, Dirvel, and Cherry also moves with that second place. But that is it for us, WCG VR Championship with Final Assault. That is it for the EU qualifiers. Also have the 8-pack as the final one, coming in just less than a day. So come back for the later one. But for now, we will be closing with that EU qualifiers. Thanks for tuning in.